See, I think Lamar Jackson's a superstar. But there are 9 people in NFL history who've won multiple MVPs. He is the only one who has never won a Super Bowl.
Tom Brady turned back into Tom Brady, and Matt Ryan turned back into Matt Ryan.
Lamar Jackson.
Ryan Philip Rivers.
Dan Marino. Jackson.
Ryan Travers.
Marino. Jackson.
Ryan Travers.
Marino. Jackson.
The pinnacle of football greatness is winning a Super Bowl, especially as a quarterback in the NFL. You look at the greatest players to ever play this game, and all of them have at least one Super Bowl win under their belt. However, there are some quarterbacks who never got to experience that feeling of leading your team to the promised land. Here in this video, I'll talk about some of the most unfortunate quarterbacks we've ever seen in the NFL. Starting with the man this video was inspired by, we got Lamar Jackson. A standout Heisman winner from Louisville, Lamar Jackson was drafted 32nd overall in the 2018 NFL Draft. A crazy fall from where Heisman winners are usually selected. When he was selected by the Baltimore Ravens, Jackson had choice words for what he would do for them.
Everything out of me. They gonna get a Super Bowl out of me. Believe that. Believe that.
Lamar took over the starting job halfway into the season over Joe Flacco and had a relatively average year. He showed flashes of the kind of playmaker he could be, but nobody could expect what kind of season he would have in his sophomore year. Lamar led the Ravens to a 14-2 record, throwing for 3,127 yards, 36 touchdowns, and only 6 interceptions. Although that doesn't sound too special coming from a quarterback, we're forgetting what Lamar could do on the ground. He rushed for 1,200 yards with 7 more touchdowns on the ground, compiling for a total of 4,333 yards and 43 touchdowns. He finished 6th in rushing yards that year, over other running backs like Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, Joe Mixon, and Aaron Jones. But unfortunately for him, this is where the Lamar fairy tale would start to decline. The Ravens had a first-round bye going into the playoffs, and would be matched up against the Tennessee Titans. Lamar had a good game, throwing for 365 yards and rushing for 143. But it was his 2 interceptions and 1 fumble lost that we look at as game changers, as they lost 28-12 against a team that finished 9-7. No big deal. It was still Lamar's first game in the playoffs, and he had a bright future ahead of him. Lamar Jackson comes back the next year and takes a step back from last season, but it still takes his team to the playoffs. He gets his revenge against the Titans in the wildcard round, beating them 20-13, but then he has to go against his fellow draftmate and Josh Allen. And in the second year in a row, Lamar Jackson underperforms, only accounting for 196 yards and throwing a pick 6 in the end zone, losing the game 17-3. Now some questions start to arise. Can Lamar Jackson win in the playoffs? 2021 comes around, and Lamar Jackson suffers an ankle injury in week 14 against the Browns, and is forced to miss the rest of the season. The Ravens lose their last 5 games of the season, and end up missing the playoffs because of it, being the only time the Ravens have missed the playoffs in the Lamar Jackson era. 2022 comes, and once again, Lamar sprains his PCL in a week 13 game against the Broncos, and is forced to miss the final 6 games of the season. Now there's different questions that start to arise. Instead of can Lamar win in the playoffs, it's can Lamar stay healthy? 2023 comes around, and we saw a completely different Lamar, where he looked very comfortable throwing the ball instead of running as much. He threw for his most yards in a season so far, throwing for 3,678 yards, 24 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. He also ran for 821 yards and 5 touchdowns on his way to his second MVP, leading the Ravens to a 13-4 record and another first-round bye in the playoffs. But Lamar didn't care about the regular season stats. He was focused on what he promised Baltimore when they first drafted him in 2018. Lamar balled out, having 2 touchdowns in the air and 2 touchdowns on the ground to beat the Texans 34-10. But then he was matched up against Patrick Mahomes and the defending champ Kansas City Chiefs. Surely Lamar can come out on top and go to his first Super Bowl, right? Wrong. Lamar Jackson has 2 turnovers, 1 interception and 1 fumble, and that's all the Chiefs need to win, as they took this game 17-10. Another disappointing season coming from Lamar, and time is ticking for the superstar. Now we come to this year, Lamar's 7th season in the NFL, and we're met with the same disappointment. Lamar Jackson has multiple turnovers in a playoff game, a fumble and interception against Josh Allen and the Bills, and that's all it takes for the Ravens to be bounced out of the playoffs. Lamar's going to win his 3rd MVP, putting him amongst the greats like Tom Brady, Brett Favre, Johnny Unitas, and Jim Brown. But there's one thing separating those 4 from Lamar. They all have rings. Yes, there are other things out of Lamar's control, that changed the outcome of those victories. Zay Flowers doesn't fumble at the goal line, and we talk about that 2023 loss differently. Mark Andrews catches that wide open 2-point conversion, and we talk about that 2024 loss differently as well. But I'm not going to make excuses for Lamar anymore. You have to be perfect in the playoffs. There's no other way around it. That's what separates the good from the greats, is their ability to perform when it's time. Look at Mahomes. In his past 2 seasons where he won the Super Bowl, he's only had 1 turnover in each playoff run. He's still young in this league, being only 27 years old, but Lamar's inability to stop turning the ball over in the playoffs is going to ruin his legacy. And unless he can get that situated, I don't think he'll ever win a Super Bowl, making him one of the most unfortunate quarterbacks. The next quarterback on this list is Dan Marino. Dan Marino was drafted in 1983 to the Miami Dolphins, and was a pleasant surprise to the Dolphins when they saw him available at 27. He started the season as a backup, which was normal back then, compared to now where they throw 20-year-olds in the deep end and then expect them to be great right off the jump. The starter David Woodley got hurt, and Marino was thrown into the starting role, where he proved he was one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Marino led the conference in passing yards, was selected to the Pro Bowl, and led the Dolphins to a 12-4 record. They'd lose in the first round of the playoffs, but the future looked bright for Miami. And bright it did, as Marino took the Dolphins to the Super Bowl in only his 2nd year in the league, which was also his MVP year. Marino marched his way in the playoffs, setting records like most passing yards and touchdowns in an AFC Championship game with 421 yards and 4 tuds. He went up against Joe Montana and the San Francisco 49ers, and with how Marino was throwing his last game, they decided to go that direction for the Super Bowl. The Dolphins threw the ball 50 times, while only running the ball 8 times compared to the 74 times in their past 2 games. The Dolphins would lose 38-16, but with Marino at the helm, it looked like they were bound for more Super Bowls as long as he was with the Dolphins. First year took them to the playoffs, next year to the Super Bowl. What was going to happen for the next 15 years he was with them? Turns out, nothing else was going to happen. The Dolphins were the only team to beat the eventual champs Chicago Bears in the 1985 season, but couldn't make it to the Super Bowl as they lost to the New England Patriots in the AFC Championship game. 86, 87, 88, 89, they missed the playoffs. 1990, they lost in the divisional round. 91, they missed the playoffs. 92, they lost in the AFC Championship. 93, missed the playoffs again. 94, 95, they lost in the divisional and the wildcard rounds. 96, missed the playoffs. 98, 99, they lost in the divisional round. So after Marino's first 2 seasons seemed like a promising foundation for the Dolphins, they would never make another Super Bowl after that. Dan Marino set records all over the NFL at the time, such as passing yards, passing touchdowns, and pass completions. He's regarded as one of the best quarterbacks to ever do it. But what would he be if he just had 1 Super Bowl ring? He does have someone like him in the NFL, a guy who had a promising rookie year, took his team to the Super Bowl in his 2nd season, and his team's success has been disappointing ever since. The 3rd quarterback on this list is someone who could put out a football team with just his kids, and that's Phillip Rivers. Rivers had a Hall of Fame career with the Chargers, where he threw for over 63,000 yards and 421 touchdowns. Him never making a Super Bowl makes him unfortunate, yes, but it's what happened before he got drafted that started his unfortunate NFL career. The 2004 NFL Draft was one for the books, being host to 3 future Hall of Fame quarterbacks. Ben Roethlisberger coming out of Miami, Ohio, Phillip Rivers coming out of NC State, and Eli Manning, the younger brother of MVP Peyton Manning, and son of former Pro Bowler Archie Manning coming out of Ole Miss. Eli Manning was the for sure #1 pick, and with the San Diego Chargers holding that pick, they had many discussions about Manning coming to California. But in a turn of events, Eli said he didn't want to go to San Diego, just days before the draft. The Chargers still drafted him with the first pick, and it was clear by Eli's facial expressions that he was not happy to be the #1 overall pick in the 2004 NFL Draft. I mean, take a look at Eli's face. He looks like he's being held hostage. Eli's agent told the Chargers he'd sit out his whole rookie year if he went to San Diego. So the Chargers traded Eli to the New York Giants for Phillip Rivers, who ended up going 4th overall in the same draft. So after all this mess was created by Eli, Rivers had to pay the price for it. And of the 3 top quarterbacks in that draft class, Rivers was the only one to not win a Super Bowl, with Eli's defense carrying him against the GOAT Tom Brady twice, and Ben Roethlisberger's whole team carrying him against the Seahawks in 2006, and Santonio Holmes saving him in what is supposed to be the greatest catch in Super Bowl history. Rivers got put in the worst situation of the 3 teams, making him one of the most unfortunate quarterbacks. The last quarterback I have on this list is Matt Ryan. Envision this. You're Matt Ryan. You've been rewarded your first MVP award. You look up at the sea of fans in the Super Bowl, then look up at the scoreboard and realize you're up 28-3 against arguably, at this time, the greatest football player ever. You feel like you're on top of the world. The Patriots score a touchdown, but no biggie. You're still up 28-9. Get back out there, have a 3 and out, whatever. They score a field goal, you fumble the football. They score a touchdown, you're forced to punt. They score another touchdown, you're forced to punt again. And all of a sudden, you look up at the scoreboard again, and you see that you have given up the biggest lead in Super Bowl history and are heading into overtime. The Patriots win the coin toss, march down the field, score a touchdown, and your whole legacy is ruined. Instead of being known as the guy who took down Brady and the Pats at the Super Bowl, having one of the greatest seasons of all time, you're now known as the biggest choke artist in sports history. Brady won his 5th championship, surpassing Joe Montana in rings and the GOAT debate with this type of performance, and that happened because Matt Ryan choked in the Super Bowl. You're not remembered as being 8th on the passing yards leaders or 9th in passing touchdowns. You're known for blowing a 28-3 lead in the Super Bowl. If that's not unfortunate, then I don't know what is. There are so many more quarterbacks that I would like to talk about in a different video. Let me know what you guys think about this one in the comments. All that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys later.